Okay, everyone, a big Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are watching here live on the live stream, but also to those that are watching, whether it be on YouTube or Rumble. A big Shabbat Shalom to you. We hope that your Shabbat is blessed, or if you're watching this after the fact, that your Shabbat was blessed. We welcome you to the river. If you are watching this after the fact, but you do wish to come join us live on the live streams, we do gather every Shabbat at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Do come and join us. And if you're wondering how to do that, head over to riverbranchfellowship.com. Scroll down on the main homepage and you'll see a link to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. When you do that, this box will pop up. Just type in your first, last name and your email. And every week on Friday, you'll receive the weekly newsletter, which will have all the news and what's going on in the community, but also the link and the login code for the Zoom live stream for you to come and join us. We would love for you to come and say hi and be a part of what the Father is doing in our midst. Okay, we are continuing on our journey through this heavenly census, this Feast of Weeks, Counting of the Omer themed teaching, if you will. And today we're going to look at the idea of the Son of David, this messianic title that has been given to our King, to Yeshua. We're going to build upon what we covered last week. And so before we jump into today, let's very quickly recap what we covered last week, because again, in true Hebraic fashion, we're going to be building principle upon principle, layering up on the understanding. We looked at how, this counting of the Omer, the Feast of Weeks, that we're told to count not only the days, but also that this word to count, safar, can mean to recount, to proclaim, to rehearse. And so, true to biblical fashion, there's the surface level understanding of counting the days, but what is the deeper meaning of counting the days? What is it that we're truly to be counting, to be recounting, to be rehearsing, to be proclaiming? We saw that the counting of the Omer was linked to the gathering of the manna, this bread from heaven. And we saw that actually the Hebrew, when it was given to the Israelites, could be translated as gathering a daily word in his day or in its day. And when the Israelites saw this bread from heaven, this manna, they asked the question, manhu? And manhu in Hebrew can mean what is it, but it can also mean who is he? And that's the question we kind of finished on last week. Who is he? Who is he? We're going to spend today and next week answering who is he? Because who is he? Well, one of the titles is the Son of David, as we'll see today. But we're actually going to spend 2 weeks answering this question. Who is he? Who is this bread from heaven? We saw how Moshe recounted the covenant to the house of Israel at Mount Sinai. And this word recounted in the Hebrew was this word, safar, which is essentially the springboard for the whole series. And so we see that this counting, this recounting, this proclamation is intrinsically tied to the covenant. We saw in Psalm 19 how the plan of redemption is written in the stars and that they proclaim his handiwork, that the stars and the Mazaroth proclaim his glory. And we saw how Psalm 19, you have this statement of the plan of redemption written in the heavens, the sun being likened to a bridegroom. And then the psalm goes right into the covenant. Is this by mistake? I say no, it's not. And the ancient Hebrews would have understood that this counting, this recounting, this proclamation is intrinsically tied to the covenant. Now, we saw this idea of what is the covenant itself? Because many people will say, when you ask them what is the covenant, they will point to Mount Sinai and go, it's the Torah. And actually, what we stated last week is that the Torah is actually the terms of the covenant. It's not the covenant itself. We saw that the covenant was given to Abraham. And as part of that covenant, essentially, you can sum it up with, if you will be my people, well, then I will be your Elohim. Well, what does that look like? What does being his people look like? There are terms attached to that. And this is what we see given to us actually at Mount Sinai. We see how at Mount Sinai, Moshe said, you have become a people as numerous as the stars of heaven, which was part of the covenant promise given to Abraham. And Moshe would then go on to say, okay, now that this is starting to come into being, let's elucidate, let's expand on this covenant. What does it look like practically in day-to-day life? Well, here are the terms of said covenant. Again, just to use the shadow picture of a marriage between a husband and a wife. The covenant itself is that they are husband and wife. Well, what does that look like? There are terms attached to that. And so it is with the covenant with the forefathers and the terms of said covenant given to the house of Israel at Mount Sinai. We saw that the covenant with Abraham is part of it is that the land that Abraham saw would be given to Abraham and to his seed, okay? And as part of this covenant, that Yah would make the seed of Abraham as the dust of the earth, so much so that it cannot be counted. And so this word for counting here is manah. Again, there's this really interesting, I believe, wordplay or hint to the giving of the manna, manhu. And here we see this word, manah. And so I believe, again, this link between the covenant and the seed and the counting of the Omer is being thematically linked with each other. As we can see, the word manah, it has a great semantic overlap with the word safar. We also saw as part, again, this reiteration of the covenant that Abraham's seed will be as numerous as the stars if we're able to number them. This word, safar, this is the same word used of the counting of the Omer. Now, Abraham believed Yah, and that belief, that faith is what was counted to him as righteousness. And we're going to, later on in the series, we're going to see how the writers of the apostolic writings and the Brit Hadashah would use these themes found in the Torah and the prophets and build upon them in the writings. Now, we see that Yah cut this covenant with Abram. And one of the ways he did this is that Abraham parted the pieces of the animals, and we see this smoking firepot and flaming torch passing between the pieces, the cutting of the covenant. And we saw that this, I believe, is the pillar of cloud and fire passing through the pieces. And we saw that it was only Elohim who passed through the pieces. Abraham was in a deep sleep, a type and shadow of death. And so we see Elohim taking sole accountability, responsibility for this covenant, which means he would be really the sole party that would have to deal with the consequences of the breaking of this covenant. And so this gets really interesting as we journey through, especially as we start today and next week, looking at this question, who is he? What role does Messiah play in this great covenant? Again, this covenant theophany, Elohim showing up in the time domain, just as it was at the cutting of the covenant, that we had this smoking fire pot and this pillar of fire, we see the same theophany showing up at Mount Sinai. These flashes of lightning, well, when you look at the Hebrew, it's actually flashes of flames. It's burning fire. And this, the mountain smoking, this Ashan. So again, we see the same apparition of Elohim at Mount Sinai as we do at the cutting of the covenant with Abram. And so this makes perfect logical sense when we understand that the covenant was given to Abraham. It passed through his seed to Isaac, to Jacob, ultimately to the 12 tribes of Israel. And now when the 12 tribes of Israel are brought to Mount Sinai on Shavuot, at the end of the counting of the Omer, we see the same apparition of Elohim going, okay, let me now give you the terms of this covenant that I have made with Abraham and his seed, which you are. You are the seed of Abraham. As part of this prophecy, this covenant passing on through the seed of Abraham, through the generations, we see Jacob, aka Israel, blessing Joseph's two boys, Ephraim and Manasseh. And we see that what Jacob did, he took the firstborn blessing, which was the right hand, and he crossed his hand over, making an ancient tav, the same shape as an ancient tav, and he's giving the firstborn blessing to Ephraim, the younger. And obviously Joseph is a bit rattled by this, but what does Jacob say? He says, I know, my son, I know. He shall also be a people, i.e. Manasseh, he shall also be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother, Ephraim, shall be greater than he, and his seed, this word, zerah, shall become a multitude of nations. And so we're getting further insight into the covenant promises that Yah made with Abraham. Because Yah said to Abraham, I make this covenant with you and your seed. Your seed will become as numerous as the stars of heaven. It will become a multitude of nations, and kings are going to come forth. Kings of many nations will come from your seed. We're getting a greater insight here that this many nations, this multitude of nations will be coming through Ephraim, the younger of Joseph's sons. By the way, we'll pick up on this later in the series because Paul would use this language, which unfortunately the English has translated as the fullness of the Gentiles. But and this misleads people. It disconnects people from the covenant promises found in Torah. Because when you look at the Greek of this fullness of the Gentiles, it actually just means multitude of nations. But we'll pick up on this later in the series. We saw that the house of Israel, as they were about to enter into the land, they were told by Moshe, you are today as numerous as the stars of heaven. Again, he's hearkening right back to the covenant made with Abram. And then he says, may Yah, the Elohim of your fathers, make you 1,000 times as many as you are and bless you as he has promised you. When you take the extremely conservative number of the house of Israel of 3 million and multiply it by 1,000, that gives you 3 billion. Could that be the fullness or the multitude of nations? I believe so. Look at this great awakening that is going on and people realizing, oh my goodness, I'm a part of the house of Israel. How could this be? Well, it's being prophesied right through from Torah. And we're just seeing the promises come to pass. And, well, not come to pass, but our eyes are being opened. That Elohim is true to his promises and true to his covenant. He truly is the one that's taken sole accountability and responsibility for this covenant. And as we're going to see, paid the consequence for it. We finished last week's teaching with this. If you are Messiahs, then you are Abraham's seed, heirs according to the promise. Where did Paul get this idea from? What promise? Heirs to what? How could Paul know and say this? And like I said, we're going to spend the next 2 parts as part of answering the question, man who is he? It's going to take us just at least 2 parts to really be able to begin to even grapple with this statement, okay? And so again, why is this important? Because we are here in the great plan of redemption. The spring-appointed times were fulfilled almost 2,000 years ago, and we're awaiting the fulfillment of the fall-appointed times. But the proclamation, that which is to be recounted and has been proclaimed since Shavuot almost 2,000 years ago, we're coming to the tail end of this period of proclamation, this period of great harvest, okay? And so here we are. This is why it's important that we understand this, and that this all ties to the covenant that Yah made with Abraham and his seed. And the Apostle Paul is saying, well, if you're Messiahs, you're the seed of Abraham, which means that that covenant applies to us if we profess a faith in Messiah. Because if we are truly Messiahs, you and I are the seed of Abraham. What does that even mean? And so today, let's jump into today. The son of David, okay? So let's look at the covenant that Yah made with David. One of the things that has crept into the religious body, especially the Christian movement, is that this idea that there are multiple covenants, right? There's the Adamic covenant and the Noahide covenant and the Mosaic covenant and the Davidic covenant and on and on. And we've chopped up the covenant into these little pieces. As we're going to see, it's one covenant that's been revealed with greater depth and greater detail as we go through the time domain, as time ticks forward. This will become abundantly clear. So this is Yah speaking to the prophet. I think it was Nathan. And he says this, "Now therefore, thus you shall say to my servant David, thus says Yah of hosts, I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, to be prince over my people Israel." Okay, so remember, Yah has made a covenant with Abraham's seed, the people of Israel. And as part of this, Yah has saw fit to have a prince rule over his people. This will be key to understand. "And I have been with you wherever you have gone and have cut off all your enemies from before you. And I will make for you a name like the name of the great ones of the earth." Remember that as part of the covenant with Abraham, Yah said, "I will make kings come forth from your seed." Okay, kings. And we see the first stages of this right now with King David. "I will appoint a place for my people Israel and will plant them." Remember this thing of scattering, regathering, this idea of the seed of the house of Israel. Well, what do you do with seed? You plant it, right? "That they may dwell in their own place and be disturbed no more. And violent men shall waste them no more as formerly." Now, here's the question. Has this truly come to pass yet? I believe not, because right now the house of Israel is in bondage. We're actually getting an allusion here to the millennial reign right here, I believe. This is yet to occur. The house of Israel is currently being disturbed. Violent men is laying waste the house of Israel. And what's really interesting, this word here, as formerly, in the Hebrew, it says ka'asher berishonah. So the word rishon here It can mean as before, as formerly. It can mean first in place. Look at this, in time, as formerly. So it can mean first, but it can also mean prior. That as he ordained before time. I'm just sowing a seed here for something much later in the series. The point that I'm trying to say here is that maybe there's an eternal perspective to this. Maybe this covenant is far greater than what we've witnessed, even in the time domain, as great as what we've seen in the time domain is. Look at that. From the time that I appointed judges over my people Israel, I will subdue all your enemies. Moreover, I declare to you that Yah will build you a house. And so we see that as part of this covenant with the seed of Abraham, something is now being given greater detail on as part of this covenant, this royal part of the covenant. Remember, kings are going to come forth from the seed of Abraham. And Yah is saying to David, I will make your house to be prince over my people Israel. Okay? As part of that, Yah will build the house of David up. This is critical to understand. When your days are fulfilled to walk with your fathers, now listen to this, I will raise up your seed after you. This is speaking to David, one of your own sons, and I will establish his kingdom. So Yah's saying, as part of the house of Israel becoming a nation, he's going to set up a royal seed to govern over his people as part of this great covenant. He shall build a house for me, and I will establish his throne forever. Okay? And so now we see this theme as part of this covenant that the son of David will have his throne established, okay? The son of David will be the ruler over the house of Israel, the seed of Abraham. I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. I will not take my steadfast love from him as I took it from him who was before you. This is referencing Saul or Shaul. But look at this. I will confirm him in my house and in my kingdom forever, and his throne shall be established forever. What Yah is saying is that David's son will be part of this heavenly census forever. Okay? Do you see what's going on here? And so what I want people to take from this is that this is not a different covenant than what was given to the house of Israel or to Moshe or to Adam or to so forth and so forth. This is simply a further explanation, a further revealing of the same covenant. Yah promised Abram, your seed will become as numerous as the stars of heaven. You will not be able to count them. They will be so great. We see they will become a multitude of nations. Kings will come forth from this. Well, all that's going on now is Yah is saying to David, your throne will rule over my house. As part of this establishing of this covenant, I will have a royal seed oversee my house. That's all that's going on. Here's what's interesting. It uses the same language with David as it did with Abraham, does it not? Your seed becoming as numerous as the stars of heaven. Okay, let's keep going. Let's now go to Solomon. Solomon is about to take the throne. And remember that the promise to David was that your son will build me a house, okay? And this will become a great typology. This should echo the words of the book of Hebrews, by the way. At Gibeon, Yah appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and Elohim said, ask what I shall give you. And Solomon, so we know that Yah offered him three things. Do you want riches or do you want wisdom? And so he gave him this choice. And Solomon said, you have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. This should be echoing how Abraham walked before Elohim. Yah said to Abram, walk before me and be perfect, be mature, be full of integrity. And we see that when Yah was speaking to Isaac, he said, I will honor my covenant with you because your father Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge. And so we see this same language being used. You have kept for him this great and steadfast love and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Yah, my Elohim, you have made your servant king in place of David, my father. Although I am but a little child, I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in your midst of your people whom you have chosen. Okay, there's great bridal analogy here, by the way. A great people, look at this, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. These two words are showing up again, Sephar and Manah, okay? We're seeing these same words again. And so what Solomon is acknowledging here is you are holding up your end, O Elohim, of the covenant. You have been faithful, righteous. You have taken accountability and responsibility for this covenant. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may, look at this, discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this, your great people? Notice what Solomon is saying here. Give me the discernment, the wisdom to be able to discern between good and evil. This should be taking us right back to the garden, by the way. But that's for a whole other time. And so we see the son of David, the son of the royal king, taking over the throne as part of this establishment of covenant. Okay? The son of the king is asking for wisdom, discernment, i.e., the spirit of Elohim to be able to govern over the seed of Abraham. Let's go forward through the prophets. Now, Jeremiah is saying this. Bear in mind that when Jeremiah is saying this is several hundred years later after King David. The house of Israel, at this stage, the house has become divided into the house of Judah and the house of Ephraim. They've become divided. And at this stage, the northern kingdom, the house of Ephraim, is already being scattered, has already been scattered into as part of the Assyrian exile. Judah is not far off being scattered themselves through the Babylonian exile. And this is what Yah is saying through Jeremiah. Thus says Yah, if you can break my covenant with the day and my covenant with the night, so that day and night will not come at their appointed time. So what is Yah pointing to now? The heavens. What is it that governs day and night? Sun, moon, and stars. He's linking the covenant. Remember what Psalm 19 said, that the heavens proclaim the handiwork, the glory of Elohim. And then that psalm goes right into the covenant. And so Yah is now pointing to the heavens, and he says, if you can break my covenant with the heavens, then also my covenant with David, my servant, may be broken. so that he shall not have a son to reign on his throne, and my covenant with the Levitical priests, my ministers. Now, again, context here. King David is dead at this point. So is Solomon, and the house of Judah is not long going to be into exile. And Yah's saying, I haven't forgotten my covenant. In fact, the evidence that I haven't forgotten my covenant is right above your heads. It's called the sun, moon, and stars. And look at what he says. As the host of heaven cannot be numbered, Sephar, and the sands of the sea cannot be measured, so I will multiply the seed of David, my servant, and the Levitical priests who minister to me. So again, this theme of Sephar, numbering, counting, the seed, zerah. We see another word show up here. This word here is madad, to measure, stretch, be measured, to extend, to continue, to stretch. It's actually the idea of measurement going on as opposed to counting. So there's a different semantic overlap here than, say, with manah. Now, you may be thinking, okay, this is speaking of King David. Well, what about Abraham? Let's keep reading on in Jeremiah 33. Have you not observed that these people are saying Yah has rejected the two clans that he chose, i.e. the two kingdoms of the house of Israel, Judah and Ephraim? Thus they have despised my people, so that they are no longer a nation in their sight. And look at what Yah says here. Thus says Yah, if I have not established my covenant with day and night in the fixed order of heaven and earth, remember that the sun, moon, and stars are the faithful witnesses, right? Then I will reject the seed of Jacob, i.e., the seed of the house of Israel, the seed of Abraham and David, my servant, and will not choose one of his seed, i.e. David's seed, to rule over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're seeing that this is the same covenant. Yah's saying the heavens are proof that I will not forget my covenant. Remember, who was it that passed through the pieces with the covenant of Abraham? And what Yah's saying is, this covenant, this is what it looks like. The seed of Abraham will become too numerous that you can count them, and they will have the throne of David to rule over them. That's the covenant. If you will be my people, then I will be your Elohim. What does being Elohim's people look like? Enter in the terms of the covenant. Do not have any other Elohim before me. Do not covet. Honor the Sabbath. Honor the appointed times. That's what it looks like to be his people. He has an order in his house. And part of that order is that the son of David shall rule over the seed of Abraham. Okay? It's very simple when you break it down. Very simple. It's religion and leaven and the muddying of the waters through Mystery Babylon that have overcomplicated this issue. It's a very simple thing. There's a house, and from that house will be a ruling governance. That sounds a lot like the millennial reign, doesn't it? Interesting. Okay, let's get deeper now. So the house of Israel has been scattered to the four corners of the earth. What's going on? Where's Elohim's covenant promises? Has he forgotten? Well, Yah's saying no. As long as the heavens are up there in their fixed order, remember the covenant. Let's look at a great messianic prophecy in Isaiah 49. Listen to me, O coastlands, and give attention, you peoples from afar. Curtis and I have spoken about this before, especially at the Feast of Weeks teaching, the Shavuot teaching, where the coastlands and the peoples from afar actually refer to the scattered house of Israel. Okay. And Yah saying, you, my scattered people, you, the seed of Abraham, here, listen, Shema. Yah has called me from the womb. From the body of my mother, he named my name, i.e., the name of this servant, as we're going to see, was given before he was born, okay? He made my mouth like a sharp sword. What do we see in Revelation regarding Yeshua? That a sword comes forth from his mouth and slays the wicked, does it not? In the shadow of his hand, he hid me. He made me a polished arrow. In his quiver, he hid me away. And he said to me, you are my servant, Israel, in whom I will be adorned. This is bridal language. This is where Judah gets mixed up, because they will say that this prophecy is speaking of the house of Israel. We're actually going to see that there's two parties addressed here. There's a servant, and there is his servant Israel. Okay? Because what Yah is saying to Israel is that Yah will be adorned with Israel. This is bridal language. Yah's essentially saying, oh, Israel, my bride will come from you. Okay? But then we will see that actually there is a servant being referred to here. And as we go through this prophecy, it becomes very clear that this is a messianic prophecy. But I said, this servant, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and vanity. Yet, surely my right is with Yah, and my recompense, my reward, with my Elohim. What we're seeing here is that it would seem from this prophecy that this servant will have seemingly served in vain. Okay? Yet he has a reward. Yet his right is with Yah. Are we actually seeing allusions to Yeshua's humanity here? Remember, he came in the flesh. He suffered. He bled. He died. Did he not? Let's keep going. And now Yah says, he who formed me from the womb to be his servant, look at this, to bring Jacob back to him, and that Israel may be gathered to him. Okay, this is how we know that this is prophecy does not speak just to Israel, like Judah will say. This is a servant whose function is to bring the scattered house back to Yah. Okay, this is how we know that there's a messianic prophecy here. And so what we see is that from this prophecy, this servant will seemingly fail in his purpose, yet he will accomplish it and be glorified. Why do I say this? Let's keep reading. For I am honored in the eyes of Yah, and my Elohim has become my strength. He says, it is too light a thing that you should be my servant. Look at this, to raise up the tribes of Jacob. Think resurrection here, to raise them up, to bring back the preserved of Israel. He's saying it's modern speak. It's too easy for you. That's what Yah is saying to the servant. It's too easy. You are my servant. And so what we see from this prophecy is that this servant will seemingly fail, yet he will succeed, and as a result, he will be glorified. Does that sound like someone? We see that one of the functions of Messiah is to regather the house of Israel. What did Yeshua say? I have only come for the house of Israel. Well, what had to happen before the great regathering, which hasn't occurred yet? Messiah had to die. It was written, he must suffer. Why do you think the Pharisees were mocking him while he was on the cross? What the Pharisees were saying is, you failed. Do you see? It was actually a fulfillment of this prophecy. Let's keep reading it. I will make you, this servant, as a light for the nations. What did Yeshua say? I am the light of the world. What was the house of Israel prophesied to become? Many nations. That my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. Well, why does the salvation have to reach to the end of the earth? Because that's where the house is being scattered to. By the way, my salvation in Hebrew is Yeshuati. The E sound is the my, the possessive form. That's the word Yeshua in the Hebrew there. You could translate this, I will make you as a light to the nations, that my Yeshua, my salvation, my deliverance, may reach to the end of the earth. Remember, we're asking this teaching and next week's teaching, we're answering Manhu. Who is he? Yah salvation, the Yeshua of Elohim. Whoa, whoa. What's really interesting, let's focusing on this statement, to bring back the preserved of Israel. The word preserved in the Hebrew is the word natsir. Natsir is very closely related, actually, to the Nazarite. Those that make Nazarite vows. And so the word natsir, the root word of that is natsar, to guard, to watch over, or to keep. And so, look, the guarded, that's why the English has gone to preserved, the guarded ones of the house of Israel. Remember one of the prophecies that we read last week, that the house of Israel would be scattered like seed to the four corners of the earth, and that Yah would sift the house of Israel. But what was the statement? Yet not one grain, not one seed shall fall to the ground. Why? Because they've been preserved. They've been guarded. They've been watched over, though they've been scattered. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Natsar, it's actually very commonly thought of in scholarly thought that there's a second word called natsar. Remember that sometimes you can have two words from the same root. And they believe that this second root of natsar is where it forms the root for the word netzer, the branch of David. We'll get to this in a second, but one of the messianic titles given to Messiah is the branch of David. And in Hebrew, it's the word netzer, okay? Which means that we can start to think the word branch is associated with this word natsar, the guarded ones of Israel, the ones watched over. What I'm trying to say is there a possible wordplay going on in the Hebrew that the role of this servant is to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to bring back the branches of Israel? Does this make you think of maybe an olive tree where the branches were broken, and as part of this regathering, that the branches will be grafted back in? Whoa, whoa, whoa. This prophecy is so deep. It's telling you The servant whose role is to raise up, to resurrect the tribes of Jacob, the seed of Abraham, is to bring back those that were watched over of Israel, the branches of Israel. And as part of that, he will be a light to the nations, and he will be Yah's salvation. He will be the Yeshua of Yah, because that's what the Hebrew says. Here's Yeshua. Look at this. Let's keep reading. Thus says Yah, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, to the one deeply despised. Was this servant, was Messiah despised? Look at this. Abhorred by the nation. Singular. Singular. What nation abhorred Messiah? Were the Pharisees and Sadducees and the religious authorities, were they fond of Yeshua, the servant? No. They hated him. Yeshua says they hated me first, without a cause. Do you see how powerful this prophecy is? The servant of rulers. This one is deep, by the way. The servant of rulers. Yeshua says that those who are found watching, when he returns, he will take off his tunic and he will wash their feet. I actually believe you're seeing a statement of Yeshua serving his bride there. Whole other line of thinking. Kings shall see and arise, princes, and they shall prostrate themselves to this servant. Why? Because Yah, who is faithful, the Holy One of Israel, has chosen you. If this does not scream Yeshua and what we read of in what we call the Bible, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. You have the word or name Yeshua literally quoted in there. The word play between guarded, preserved, and the branches of Israel is telling you that this servant will be abhorred by the nation that he's serving. It's telling you that it will seem like he served in vain, but he will succeed and he will be glorified. If this does not make your spirit shout for joy, I don't know what does. Why is this important? We have to understand what this servant will do and what it will look like. Okay. Isaiah 11. This is, again, another great messianic prophecy. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. The word for branch there is netzer. Okay? Netzer. This is where, what we said in the previous verse, the preserved ones of Israel, Natsir, comes from the word Natsar. And so this is why I believe there's a word play going on in the Hebrew, because Netzer means the branch of David. And it comes from the same root as this word to guard, to watch over. Well, what have branches got to do with being guarded? This is why we think there's actually a synonym going on here. And is there a word play that the servant, the Netzer of David, will bring back the branches of Israel? Think what Yeshua says. I am the vine and you are the branches. It's all over your scriptures. A branch will come forth from David, and look at this, bear fruit. What did Yeshua say? You can only bear fruit if you're rooted in me, because he is the Netzer. Look at this. The Spirit of Yah shall rest upon him. Let's count together. 1, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding. 2, 3, The spirit of counsel and might, 4:5. The spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yah, 6:7. Oh, look at that. The 7 spirits rest upon him. Interesting. I believe this is an allusion to the 7 spirits found before the throne in the book of Revelation. We'll read that passage at the end of today. His delight shall be in the fear of Yah. He shall not judge by what his eyes see or decide disputes by what his ears hear. But look at this. With righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth, i.e. the nations. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. This sounds an awful lot like what we read of in Revelation 19 regarding the word of Yah coming with a sword from his mouth. This sounds awfully similar to the prophecy we just read in Isaiah 49 regarding this servant that would seemingly fail, but actually not. And it said that his mouth was as sharp as a sword. Also, note the similarities to King Solomon. The spirit of wisdom and understanding. What did Solomon ask for? What did Solomon do when he was judging the house of Israel? We read this account, right, of the two women and fighting over whose son it is. Do you see the similarities to King Solomon here? The son of David was Solomon, and there's a covenant attached to that, right, as part of the great covenant with the seed of Abraham. Do you see what's going on here? Let's keep going. By the way, after this section of Isaiah 11, it plainly speaks of the millennial reign. It says that, children will be able to put their hand in the adder's nest. Lion will eat straw like an ox, and so forth. You see this going back to, pre-flood conditions. And then we keep reading and we see this. In that day, the root of Jesse, remember what the covenant with David was. A son, your seed will always rule over my house, the seed of Abraham. Look at this. In that day, the root of Jesse shall stand as a signal for the peoples, i.e., he will be a beacon of light to the nations. Again, this is a fulfillment of the prophecy in Isaiah 49. Though this servant would seemingly fail, he will become a light to the nations. And that bringing back the branches or the guarded ones of Israel will be, quote unquote, too easy for him. Look at this. In that day, Yah will extend his hand a second time to recover the remnant that remains of his people, i.e. the house of Israel. Look at this, from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, and from the coastlands of the sea. Read that. Note the nations that have been mentioned here. Now think Acts chapter 2. Where were the people from? The devout people from all nations. Where were they from? You see all these nations in Acts chapter 2. Something is being proclaimed in Acts chapter 2. Something is being recounted to the people, is being sephared. What was being recounted? Yah's faithfulness to the covenant. Look at this. He will raise a signal for the nations and will assemble the banished of Israel and gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The jealousy of Ephraim shall depart. Those who harass Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall no longer be jealous of Judah, and Judah will not harass Ephraim. This is yet to occur. And what we're seeing, look, it says very clearly, Yah will do this, yet somehow the branch and the root of David is a part of this. The seed of David, the generation of David is playing a part in this. We read this in Psalm 2. This is, I believe, fall appointed times prophecy. This is yet to occur. The precursor to this is that the nations are plotting against Elohim and his anointed one, against his Messiah, right? And then it says this, then he will speak to them, look at this, in his wrath. This is the fall appointed times, and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. Who is this king on Mount Zion? We have the hindsight of being able to say that's Messiah, okay? But those in Yeshua's day didn't have the writings of the Brit Chadashah, what we would call the New Testament. What did they have? The Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Who is this king? It's the seed of David. By the way, I've only mentioned one scripture regarding the branch of David for the sake of time. There's like 10 different prophecies regarding the branch of David. Go do some studying in your own time. Now, and so who is this king that Elohim is setting on Zion's hill? It's the seed of David. And that's part of the fulfillment of the covenant with Abraham. Abraham, your seed will become many nations. It will become a great house. As part of that great house, I'm going to have a king over it. It's coming from the seed of David. Look at this. I will tell of the decree. The word there is safar. I will recount of your decree. You could translate this as I inscribe a decree, because safar can also mean to inscribe. So what's being proclaimed? What's being recounted? Yah said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. What was the covenant made with David? You will have a son. He shall be king over your throne, and he will be my son. This is this is literally a rehashing, a restating of the covenant with David. But he's now speaking to David's seed. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Again, we know that from the book of Revelation, Messiah will do this, as will the overcomer, which is really interesting, the bridal position. Is this getting quite deep? By the way, we're just scratching the surface. Oh, it's deep. And so now we see the seed of David playing a part, the son of David, Yah's son, the royal seed, the king of Zion, all being linked to this Safar and the fall appointed times and ruling the nations as prophesied. Oh, it's deep. It goes on in Psalm 2. Now, therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve Yah with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all those who take refuge in him. What's interesting is that the word son here in Hebrew, kiss the son, normally in Hebrew, the word is ben. Okay. Here, the word is bar. And there's debate whether this is Hebrew or Aramaic, because this word is in both Hebrew and Aramaic. In Aramaic, it means son or heir. Think heir to the throne, okay? In Hebrew, it means chosen. Interesting. Kiss the chosen one. Or kiss the son, kiss the heir. Here's my musings, okay? These are my thoughts. Are these verses speaking to the coming bridal governance? The kings of the earth, the rulers of the earth. Because who serves Yah with fear? Who rejoices with trembling? I believe this is a bridal statement. How? Think of it this way. Be warned because of what happened to the nations in the prior age. I.e., what we've just read, that we saw what happened in this age. They got broken like a potter's vessel. Therefore, those of you who are now going to rule in his house, serve Yah with fear. The fear of Yah is what? The beginning of wisdom. Something that will be needed for those governing the house of Israel. Oh, wait, isn't that what Solomon asked for? Isn't that one of the spirits that rests upon the seed of David, the branch of David? Do you see what's going on? Oh, it's so deep. Let's keep going. In that day, Ezekiel 34. For thus says the Master Yah, behold, I myself will search for my sheep and will seek them out. As a shepherd seeks out his flock when he is among his sheep that have been scattered, so will I seek out my sheep. And I will rescue them from all the places where they have been scattered look at this, on a day of clouds and thick darkness. Think the appointed times, the full appointed times here. And I will bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the countries and will bring them into their own land. Look at this, the fulfillment of the promise to Abraham. And I will feed them on the mountains of Israel, by the ravines, and in all the inhabited places of the country. Elohim is actually keeping his promise attached to the covenant with Abraham and his seed, which means that it was the Master Yah that was passing through the pieces of the covenant with Abram. But here's the question. Who was it that said he will search out for the sheep? Who was it that said that he will rescue the sheep and he will make them lie down in pastures? Do you see what's going on? Let's keep reading in Ezekiel 34. I myself will be the shepherd of my sheep, and I myself will make them lie down, declares the Master Yah. I will seek the lost. I will bring back the strayed. I will bind up the injured. I will strengthen the weak, and the fat and the strong I will destroy. These are the sheep from within the body that are harming the other sheep within the house. I will feed them in justice. As for you, my flock, thus says the Master Yah, behold, I judge between sheep and sheep, between rams and male goats. Whoa, 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 whoa. Aren't these all the things that Yeshua said he would do? That he would judge between sheep and goats, that he would seek the... So who is it? Who passed through the pieces? Who is the only one that's taking accountability, responsibility, thus paying the consequences if that covenant is broken? Here's the thing. Yah says in this prophecy that he will bring back the scattered. Well, we read in Isaiah that the branch of David will do that. Is Yah contradicting himself? No. Ezekiel 34, we continue. And I will set up over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he shall feed them, and he shall feed them and be their shepherd. What was the covenant made with David? Someone from your seed will always be on your throne as an everlasting covenant. And I, Yah, will be their Elohim, and my servant David shall be prince among them. I am Yah, I have spoken. And they shall know that I am Yah, their Elohim, with them, and that they, the house of Israel, are my people, declares the Master Yah. And you are my sheep, human sheep of my pasture, and I am your Elohim, declares the Master Yah. If you will be my people, I will be your Elohim. That's the covenant. Here's the thing. Didn't Elohim literally just say he would be the people's shepherd? In the same chapter. Look, let's go back here. Verse 15, I myself will be the shepherd of my sheep. And then you drop down to verse 23, and I will set up over them one shepherd, my servant David. Is Yah contradicting himself? Are you maybe seeing that Elohim may have to come and take accountability and responsibility so that he can pay the consequence of the covenant being broken? Why? Because he was the only one that passed through the pieces. Do you see how important the understanding of the covenant is critical? Let me rephrase it this way. This is probably not your not usual Feast of Weeks teaching that you've heard. By the way, the ancients knew this intrinsically, as we will see. Let's look at the two sticks prophecy in Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel 37, verse 20. When the sticks on which you write are in your hand before their eyes, then say to them, thus says the Master Yah, behold, I will take the people of Israel from the nations among which they have gone, and I will gather them from all around and bring them back to their own land. Again, is Yah doing this, or is the branch of David doing this? I would argue that both are true. The only way that can happen is if Yah becomes part of the seed of David. I will make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king over them all. And they shall no longer be two nations and no longer divided into two kingdoms. They shall not defile themselves any more with their idols and their detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. But I will save them from all the backslidings in which they have sinned, and I will cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim. By the way, this is overtones of the renewed covenant in Ezekiel 36, that the house of Israel will no longer defile themselves with their idols. But look at what he says. Yah, the Master Yah, will save them and will cleanse them. Let me ask you, how is it that we are cleansed from our sins? We have this luxury of hindsight, don't we? It's through the blood of Messiah. The blood of Yeshua. But Yah is saying, I will do this. I'm going to say something that you have to reckon here. We haven't even started looking at the quote unquote New Testament. You have to reckon with the Torah and the prophets right now. Do you believe what they say? Because there's only one way it can all come together, That's your Messiah. Look at this. My servant David shall be king over them, and they shall have one shepherd. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold it right there. We're still in the same chapter. Look, we've just read that he will gather them and he will be king over them. And now he's saying, this will be my servant David, and they shall have one shepherd. They shall walk in my rules and be careful to obey my statutes. They shall dwell in the land that I gave, look at this, to my servant Jacob, aka Israel, where your fathers lived. He's honoring his part of the covenant. They and their children's children shall dwell there forever, i.e., the seed of Abraham. And David, my servant, shall be their prince forever. Oh, do you see what's going on? Either David is the prince and king over them, or Yah is. Who is this servant from the branch of David that would seemingly fail, but then would be glorified? Do you see what's going on? Oh, by the way, he will become a light to the nations and to the world. He will become a sign and banner to the nations. Look at this. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will set them in their land and multiply them. Again, think the seed of Israel becoming more numerous than the stars, and I will set my sanctuary in their midst forevermore. Now we're getting further insight into what this will look like. He will place his sanctuary in their midst. My dwelling place shall be with them, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. You read this statement in Exodus 19, by the way. Then the nations will know that I am Yah who sanctifies Israel, when my sanctuary is in their midst forevermore. This is yet to occur. And Yah is saying that he will do it, and Yah is saying the branch of David will do it. There's only one way both those statements can be true. All right, let's start wrapping up. Most of you have probably read right over this 1,000 times. Matthew 1, verse 1. The book of the genealogy of Yeshua Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Does that make a lot more sense now? Why would Matthew even state those two people? Because then he goes on to list the genealogy of Messiah, right? But why pick out the son of David and the son of Abraham? Out of the whole lineage, he could have gone with Isaac, Jacob. He could have gone with Judah. He didn't. He says, the genealogy of Yeshua Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. This is a covenant statement. Matthew is saying here, this is Elohim taking accountability, responsibility, and I'm going to tell you how he paid the consequences of the covenant. Do you see what's going on? This is not just a pretty genealogy. This is a covenant statement. How do we know this? Hopefully you're seeing it for yourself. But do you remember earlier when we read this scripture regarding the servant that would seemingly fail? The one that would seemingly serve in vain, yet he will resurrect, raise up the tribes of Israel and bring back the guarded or branches of Israel, that he will become a light to the nations so that Yeshua, salvation, may reach the ends of the earth. I purposely stopped there for a reason. because it goes on to speak this later on. He did not serve in vain. Isaiah 49 continues with this. Thus says Yah, in a time of favor, I have answered you. In a day of salvation, I have helped you. In a day of Yeshua, that will say in the Hebrew. Do you remember the command regarding the gathering of the manna back from part 1? And it says that you shall gather a daily word in his day. Who is he? Manhu. Who is he? What's his name? A day of salvation? Look at this. I will keep you and give you, look at this, as a covenant to the people, to establish the land, to apportion the desolate inheritances, to say to the prisoners, come out, to those who are in darkness, appear. Isn't this the good shepherd? They shall feed along the ways, on all bare heights shall be their pasture. Doesn't it say that with Yeshua that the people saw a great light? Look, I will give you as a covenant to the people. Messiah is the covenant to the people. This is why Matthew says, this is the genealogy of Yeshua Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. How does Yah fulfill his covenant? It's Yeshua, the seed of Abraham, the seed of David, the one who will regather the lost. They shall not hunger or thirst, neither scorching wind nor sun shall strike them. For he who has pity on them will lead them, and by springs of water will guide them. In Revelation 7, verses 16 and 17, it says that it's the Lamb who's doing this. Yeshua Messiah, son of David, son of Abraham. It's a covenant statement. Oh, Isaiah is saying this, that this servant who would seemingly fail, he wouldn't fail. He will become a light to the nations. He will regather the branches of Israel. They were guarded. Not one seed shall fall to the ground, though they've been sifted. He will resurrect or raise up the house of Israel. Oh, we're catching up in the modern day on what the ancients knew. Oh, we're playing catch up. Isaiah 42, verses 6 and 7. I am Yah, I have called you in righteousness. I will take you by the hand and keep you. Look at this. I will give you as a covenant for the people, a light for the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison, those who sit in darkness. By the way, we know that in verse 6, when it says, I have called you, I will take you, I will keep you, I will give you as a covenant for the people, that's singular masculine, not plural. Who opened the eyes that are blind? Who brought out the prisoners from the dungeon, from those who sit in darkness? You read this when Yeshua is reading from the scroll of Isaiah, saying, today this prophecy is being fulfilled. I actually believe this is allusions to Messiah's ministry and ultimately the resurrection from Sheol. You know, why does Yeshua says something interesting to the Pharisees? It says Elohim is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. He's the Elohim of who? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The only way that can be true is if Elohim resurrects them from the dead. Oh, wait, who has the keys to Sheol? Look, there's so many layers to this. Again, this is just a scratch off the surface. We in the modern day have a lot of catch up to do. But again, Messiah is given as a covenant for the people. What covenant? The covenant made with Abraham and to David, i.e., who will rule the seed of Abraham. The only way that can be fulfilled is through Yeshua Messiah. He is the fulfillment of that covenant. He's what makes that covenant possible. Oh, wait, who passed through the pieces? Who would pay the consequences? This is why Messiah, by the eyes of the religious, would seemingly fail. This is why Messiah had to die and then be resurrected. It was prophesied. This is why in the Gospels it says that the Messiah had to suffer as it is written in the scriptures. That Matthew 12, 22 to 23, then a demon-oppressed man who was blind and mute was brought to him, and he healed him. Look at that. He opened the eyes of the blind, like it was prophesied. So that the man spoke and saw. And all the people were amazed and said, "Can this be the son of David?" The people of the day knew the Torah, the prophets, and the writings intimately. Hopefully, this statement makes a lot more sense now. I encourage you, watching and listening, go do some study regarding the branch of David and the root of David and see where it takes you. And don't read just the one verse. Read the whole passage and the chapters preceding and afterwards as well. Chapters. This is how the people of the time thought. Why did this people of the day even have a concept of the son of David? Oh, they knew their scriptures. By the way, the book of Matthew is the one where son of David is most often used in all the Gospels, referring to Yeshua. Why? Matthew, in his gospel, is making the theological point. Right back in verse 1 of chapter 1, the genealogy. Think the genealogy of Yeshua Messiah. What's the genealogy? It's the seed line. The seed. Son of David, son of Abraham. Why those two? Revelation 5, verses 5 and 6. One of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah," look at this, "the root of David has overcome, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Look at this, which are the 7 spirits of Elohim sent out into all the earth. What are these 7 spirits? We read of them in Isaiah 11. The spirit of Elohim, the spirit of wisdom, discernment, might, strength, and so forth. This is referencing Isaiah 11. This is not a new passage. This is a revealing of what Isaiah 11 looks like. Revelation 22:16, I, Yeshua, have sent my angel or messenger to testify to you about these things for the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring or seed of David, the bright morning star. Yeshua is the fulfillment of that covenant. Oh, wait, he passed through the pieces. Which means that because that covenant was broken, what had to happen to the one who passed through the pieces? He had to die. but he overcame. He was resurrected. And your Tanakh is saying that Yah did that. We're going to finish on this scripture. I'm going to finish with a question. Let's read the passage. Luke 1, 31 to 33. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Yeshua. Have you ever asked yourself, why was that the name that he had to be named by? Have you ever asked yourself that? Why? Not what. We know that people get so focused on the what, or is it this, is it that, blah, blah. But we're told here his name shall be Yeshua. Have you ever asked yourself why? By the way, there was a seed for that today. I don't know if you caught it. He will be great, and he will be called Son of the Most High. Where's that even coming from? Yah Elohim will give him the throne of his father David. So now we're seeing the fulfillment of the promise of David. And we know that as part of that promise to David, Yah would say, one of your sons, one of your seed will become my son, says Yah. That's where Son of the Most High comes from, by the way. It goes right back to Solomon and King David and what they would typify. And look at this. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, Israel. Oh, wait, the promise to Abraham, the same covenant. And of his kingdom, there will be no end. Reference to Isaiah right there. But this son of David, son of Abraham, why was his name? Why did it have to be Yeshua? Why did it have to be that? Did you know that we read a scripture earlier today that said that, speaking of the servant, that he was hidden in the hand of Elohim, right? And that his name was called from the womb. Ooh, interesting. Why was his name called from, I would argue, before the womb? Why did his name have to be Yeshua? Because it's all over the prophecies. That I will give you as a breadcrumb. Let's stop here for today. Like I said, today, at the end of part 1 last week, I said, we asked the question, Man hu? Who is he? Who is he? And that I said it will take 2 parts to begin to answer that question. Well, today we're beginning to see, who is he? He's the son of David. He's the son of Abraham. He is how the fulfillment of the covenant is even possible. Yeshua is the fulfillment of Elohim taking accountability for that covenant being broken. Next week, we're going to answer the question of who is he, but why did his name have to be Yeshua? What is his name? Is Yeshua his only name? Let's stop here for today. Amen.